I'm so happy about being here. My name is Mian Rice, Director of the Diversity and Contracting Department for the Port of Seattle. It is just a sincere pleasure and excitement that I have here in front of you today to talk a little about the port. We got some great folks ahead of you today that will be giving some wonderful presentation about the Port of Seattle and some of the areas of opportunities and how we work. But before I go this route, I do want to give a huge thank you to SBTRC and the acronym city of the, let's see, what was it? The PTAC. I'm trying, and I'm blanking on the whole full word of PTAC. But anyway, nonetheless, we have a lot of partners here that brings a lot of great knowledge. This wonderful series that we actually have here that a lot of you would, I think, would be very interested in seeing, and I would encourage you to take a look at some of the other series as well under the Advanced PortGen efforts. And this is just, again, a wonderful time period, a lot of opportunities out here in the state of Washington and a lot of these government entities, especially us with, from a selfish perspective. This is something in which we hope that you enjoy, and also please at the end fill out a survey and let us know how, or send us an email and let us know how are you enjoying, and are we giving the right content to you. So without further ado, let me tell you a little about the Port of Seattle. Let me just at a high level, and then I'm going to hand the ball over to my partner in crime, Emily Ho, as well as all my other port folks that are going to be on, you'll be hearing today. They are great partners with us. But let me tell you quickly about the Port of Seattle and our mission here at the port, and which, let me back up a little bit. The Port of Seattle was established in 1911, and we're here to promote economic opportunities and really try to bring in quality of life in the region and advocating trade, travel, commerce, job creation, and equitable and accountable and environmentally responsible manner. That is our mission and our effort that we're really trying to promote as the Port of Seattle since 1911. We are continuing to move the needle in that direction that supports our mission. Now, next slide, please. We have 5 commissioners. We have 5 commissioners that are elected by King County voters, and those 5 commissioners set port policies through resolutions and directives. So they are our policy policy heads who actually have public meetings. I say second and fourth Tuesdays, and really I say actually, so every once in a while, every once in a blue moon, there might be a special meeting that may land on a different day, but for the most part, public meetings are the second and fourth Tuesdays, which is very important because a lot of those meetings also gives a lot of those businesses out there an indication, idea of where is the port going, what is that future opportunity is going to be, what are people gearing up for, and how much money may that said project or efforts going to take, and how long is it going to take. So sometimes project managers and folks get on these public meetings and talk about their specific projects. So they also appoint an executive director to oversee our daily operations. His name is Steve Metrick, who's just awesome executive director. He oversees all of this. And next slide, please. And I wanted to give you kind of a bird's eye view of this organizational structure, which is, I'm not going to go through all of this, but I just wanted to show you Port of Seattle is massive. It has operating divisions and also you have operating divisions and also the non-operating divisions that support the port as well, from legal all the way down to public human resources and public affairs and things like that. But all these departments fall under the commission and the executive director, who actually handles all operations through the Port of Seattle. So this is a fairly large organization that does a lot within the King County and in our region when it comes down to port activities. Next slide. Now, areas. Some folks, it's interesting. The other day I talked to some friend of mine that didn't realize SeaTac Airport, or formerly known as SEA Airport. We have Port of Seattle owns and operates that airport. So we have the aviation division, which basically is, as you see, there's the 10th most connected international hub in the United States. And 2021, actually this number is down because of the pandemic, but we did about 36.2 million passengers. That's a lot of passengers. You can imagine, this number is continuing to tick back up to the 40s to 50 million annual passengers as we started, as the economy is starting to take hold in a better light. We have maritime industries, fishermen's terminals, marinas, which we have vessels at the port facilities, which we actually produce 13% of the US commercial fishing. So this is really significant. So 1 million of that is actually the cruise passenger operations as well, so of each year. And then lastly, we really are promoting local tourism, marketing support programs. We lease a lot of office space to a lot of youth, small disadvantaged businesses, and all businesses as such. We lease a lot of space and retail. We do have industrial and maritime and warehousing space to all industries. So we're fairly comprehensive in itself. We are actually, if you would think about it, we are a city within itself where we cover all the different industries just about, as well as I guess you could say we cover all different contracting types. So can you imagine opportunities in all these different particular areas? Next slide, please. Now, for some of you who might be interested, our primary funding and fees and bonds, only 44% of the port funds are coming from the property tax through King County as a product. But the airport itself is primarily a self-funded and not supported by the taxpayer dollars. And just give you an idea, our capital projects make up the largest share of port expenditures. So port total budget for capital development projects typically range around 560 mil or more. And we're talking, that's 2022. I'm assuming it's going to climb and even higher as we continue to build up capacity for a lot of our capital projects. So please take a look at that. This is it's very intensive, and we are, as I said, we are competing also with a lot of these other great projects outside of the port. So I'm glad you guys are here to listening, but you see that there's money in the hoppers that we're looking at for now and also into the future. So continue to look at the port as a possibility. And then, those investments are funded by bond proceeds, cash on hands, and other sources of revenue. So anyway, I wanted to kind of give you a high level about the Port of Seattle, where we're coming from, and the funding. And I'm going to hand the rest off. Because of all this, we have a diversity and contracting department that really wants you to participate on a lot of these projects. And so I'm going to give my the baton to Emily, and so she can talk a little more about diversity and contracting and where we're headed. So Emily.
Great. Thanks so much, Mian. So Mian's actually my boss. He's the director of diversity and contracting here, and I am the community engagement and training program manager within this team. Kind of part of the big picture that Mian provided, the port is a huge anchor institution here that drives our regional economy. And as part of that, the port is committed to equity as a part of our mission, so that everyone and every community benefits when we build and operate our facilities. So in 2018, this commitment was codified in Resolution 3737, the Diversity in Contracting Policy Directive that was issued by our commission. And the purpose of the resolution was to level the playing field for socially and economically disadvantaged businesses who are impacted by disparities that have been institutionalized in port policies and practices. And so the way that it comes together concretely is that we established a 5-year benchmark that by 2023, we would triple the number of women and minority-owned business enterprise firms that we do business with here at the port. But that we would also increase the amount of spend that we have on these contracts up to 15% within these 5 years. And the way that that goal is carried out is primarily through these two main programs that me and our team are responsible for. So on the left here is our Women and Minority Business Enterprise Program. Lawrence Coleman, my colleague, helps head that up. And on the right here, the Disadvantaged Business Enterprise Program, which my colleague Lisa Fair heads up. And so the main difference between these two programs is that the WIMBY program is a statewide program and applies to our port projects, whereas our DBE program is part of a federal program and applies to our port projects that receive federal Department of Transportation funds. So they both have inclusion plans that typically have a goal percentage that primes must meet, and which that percentage must be dedicated to WIMBY or DBE firms. Oftentimes these inclusion plans would include making sure that the primes are providing an outreach strategy as to how they're going to make sure that goal percentage is reached, what kind of business development support they'll provide, what strategies that they're actually going to execute to meet their WIMBY or DBE goal, as well as laying out how they would approach resolving disputes. There are some other differences in terms of the contract types that these two programs apply to. As you can see on the screen, goods and services is something that is typically only found in the WIMBY program as opposed to the DBE program, whereas for both you will find both A&E as well as construction within those programs. They also differ in terms of the type of dollar value thresholds that these projects apply to, as well as what kind of certification is needed, whether it's self-identified or certified, which is in the WIMBY program, or whether you're actually federally DBE certified, which is necessary for the DBE program, is actually something that if you're going to apply or be a part of that team that's chasing a project that has DBE goals, you actually have a firm have to be certified DBE at the time of bid. So that is something to keep in mind, especially since at the port, we have a lot of federal projects coming down the pike. So it definitely is to the benefit of businesses that you get certified DBE as soon as possible so that you are ready to team up with primes who will need to fulfill their mandatory DBE goals for their projects. So this actually is my bread and butter, training and outreach. So this advanced PortGen is one of the trainings that we provide. We also have another program, the Accelerator Mentorship Program, which is starting up next week, which is has a more robust curriculum and is requires a lot more commitment, but also provides some mentorship as well. So that's some of the training that we provide. I do want to point out some of these first look presentations that we're having scheduled on our calendars. We have a Maritime Industry Day coming up September 28th. That's a Wednesday in the afternoon, where we'll be showcasing some upcoming opportunities on our maritime side of the port. We also have a specific opportunity at looking at aviation maintenance, goods and services, and how, if that's something that interests you, how to get plugged into that. I also want to put in a plug for our Small Works Electrical On-Call pre-bid meeting that Angela and her team, Angela, who's speaking a little bit later, is going to help put on. And then there are a number of different opportunity and resource dissemination and community engagement that we do here as well. This slide real quick is just to show you the port, as a result of our commitment, really has significantly increased the investments that we have made in our WIMBY businesses, both in dollar amounts, represented by percent spend here, as well as the number of firms that we're working with. Right here, I think, is kind of the call to action. If you're not signed up to Vendor Connect already, I would highly, highly encourage you to register on Vendor Connect. I'll drop in the URL for that in the chat in a moment. But this is really where you can be seen. Think about it as marketing. This is where primes go to look for WIMBY and DBE subs. This is also where folks within the port look for WIMBY and DBE firms that they can actually work with. So it's really important in that way. It's also a way for you to go on there and to see what opportunities are current and what is coming up. It's important that you have your WIMBY and small business credentials actually correctly labeled and updated there. Otherwise, folks won't be able to filter and know, like, oh, hey, your firm is WIMBY. I want to be able to include you in that work. Also, make sure your NAICS codes is correct, because again, that filtering is so important. If you don't come up in the search, then you won't be as visible in the ways that really might be helpful. And you can also sign up for different rosters for a small works, goods and services, and consulting rosters through Vendor Connect as well. So this is some of our contact information. Take a screenshot if that might be helpful. Really, diversity in contracting is here to facilitate your success. Please allow us to assist you by connecting you to the right resources and the right opportunities. Please reach out anytime. Also, please do, if you're not already signed up to our mailing list, to actually sign up either through the QR code here or the bit.ly link. That's the best way to keep apprised of the many trainings and events and the opportunities that are coming up. And so with that, I'll start to transition. This is actually one slide that I took from Farless Lewis, who is coming up next behind me. But just to provide a little bit of context, my colleagues at the Central Procurement Office are going to be speaking after me. Farless is going to be representing purchasing, also sometimes referred to as goods and services. She'll be followed by Tamara and her team, which will be talking about consulting, also sometimes known as service agreements. And then they will, I think, be followed by Angela Peterson, who will be talking about construction, which is also sometimes referred to as public works. And so I think it's helpful, like sometimes all those things get mixed up together. So it's nice to know, like, okay, like this is this, but also known as. So I'm trying to help provide some of that context. With that said, I will hand it over to Farless.
Hi, everybody. I am Farless Lewis, and I work for the Central Procurement Offices in purchasing. Apparently, 2 of my slides got stolen from me today, people. Well, borrow. So we're going to talk directly about purchasing instead of talking about the Central Procurement Office a little bit. So we in purchasing buy goods, and we also buy services. So it gets a little confusing sometimes between what is a purchase service and what is a personal or professional service. So let me walk you a little bit and explain to you what the difference is. So we in purchasing buy goods. So goods is anything that you can touch, anything that you can take, anything that you can see. And then for purchase services, we buy stuff that is off the shelf and services that are offered that don't require a specific designs or modifications, but it's just stuff that can be offered to pretty much any organization. So the next slide has some examples of what are, some of the goods that we buy at the Port of Seattle. So we buy a lot of electronics, furniture, office supplies, automobile parts and automobiles itself. And then we buy police and fire equipment because we have our own police force and our own fire department. For services, we spend a ton of time acquiring catering services. We just awarded the catering contract for the convention center. The conference center at SCA. And then we buy janitorial, mechanical, drug testing is one of the contracts that we buy. And then window cleaning is another type of the services that we contract with. So the next slide will talk a little bit about our procurement process and how you can compete. So I am going to do another plug for Vendor Connect, because it definitely is the best and more efficient way for you not to miss one of our opportunities. So make sure that if you're not registered on Vendor Connect, that you get registered. Then the really cool part about Vendor Connect is that you can register with several tags. And so if you are a company that you're offer goods and services, but you also are interested in other type of opportunities, then you can do the same thing, and then you can register for different tags. Depending on the tag that you choose, then as soon as we publish a solicitation and we said, okay, we're looking for companies that offer goods and services, then you would receive an email that says, hey, there is an opportunity out there, and then you will be able to review it and make a decision whether you are a good fit for that opportunity or not. When you are making the decision to compete for our procurements, please make sure that you read all of the documentation and that you ask as many questions as possible. We joke in purchasing that we write the perfect solicitation until we publish it, and then you guys take a look and find all of the holes that we spent months and months trying to prevent, and then immediately they show up. So we really like it when the vendor community asks questions, because it gives us an opportunity to clarify our intentions, but it also allows you to make the decision of whether you will be a good fit or not for us. One of the things that we notice that happens all the time is that we provide very clear instructions on what to do and what not to do when you decide to participate in one of our procurements. And so make sure that you follow those directions. We do spend a lot of time thinking about the process and the strategy. And so follow the directions that we provide. If we tell you to submit the solicitation on a specific email address, make sure that it goes there and not in another place. Because we want to be able to find you and we want to be able to consider you during the process. So another tip is, if you are invited to discussions, a lot of our processes have an initial evaluation of just your paper proposal, and then there is a second phase of discussions. And so if you are invited to those discussions, make sure that you can prepare, do your research, make sure that you understand our goals, our interests, and make sure that you know clearly how you want to present your company. During discussions, we're paying attention to your product, but we're also paying attention to your teams and how they work together, because that is very important to us. Make sure that you write your proposals as quickly as you can. Start writing, edit, and edit some more, and continue to edit all the way until the end. And then we are very intentional on the number of pages that we give you, because remember, our time is limited. So pretty much all of the solicitations in purchasing will have a page limit. Make sure that you follow that page limit and that you answer the questions as completely as possible. Give us enough information so that we could make decisions, but then also make sure that you don't give us, too much information in terms of marketing fluff and that stuff. We're all about substance when we're reading your proposals. Do not make any assumptions. We see that all the time. Sometimes you might know somebody that works at the airport, or your business is getting very popular, and so you make the assumption that we might know something about your company. So don't make that assumption. Don't make that mistake. We do evaluation at the port by committee, and so we have many different members of several teams evaluating your proposals and your quotes and making the decisions that they need to make. And so if somebody might know something about you, they will not be able to use that information anyway. So just make sure that you are as clear and as complete as possible when you're answering the questions. Next slide, please. Okay, so a couple of things that we see happens with specifically smaller business or 1B businesses. Talk to your broker about insurance requirements. The last thing we want to do is to award you a contract and then find out that you cannot meet the insurance requirements. So make sure that you understand what those are. Make sure that you can get that level of coverage. And if you cannot get the level of coverage, then talk to us about it, ask questions, and then request the changes that are necessary for you. But it is only possible for us to solve that problem if we know that it exists. If you don't know that you cannot get the right level of coverage, then we will not be able to support you during that period of time. So check with your insurance. Draft a safety plan to begin with. It doesn't have to be super elaborate, but make sure that you understand what safety plan requirements look like at the Port of Seattle. As for examples, if you have never put together a safety plan, and also make sure that you understand what type of permits are going to be required for you to be successful at meeting this requirement of the solicitation. So sometimes there is permits that are kind of in there, but if you don't understand the industry very well, it just gets a little confusing. So let's say you compete and then we award you a contract. Then what is going to happen is we're going to send you a notice of intent to award. On that letter, we're going to ask you for a specific information regarding your insurance, your safety plan. We're going to ask you for your supplier information. We need to put you in our financial and payment system. We're going to ask for a W-9 if you haven't done business with us. And even if you have, we might ask for you to provide an updated form just to make sure that we have the correct information. And then the one thing that we're going to talk to you about is badging, because badging requirements at the port are pretty significant and they take time. So make sure that you understand what type of staffing levels you are going to need and make some calculations about costs associated with badging and also time that you are going to need to be able to badge all of your staff on time to start the performance of the contract. Next slide, please. Okay. I think I talked a little bit about that. So let me pick up on item number 3. Once we get you all going and you're ready to perform, and then it's time to submit your first invoice, make sure that you know exactly what the process is for invoicing. A lot of times we hear complaints about payments and how much longer it takes us to pay. Well, the problem is that if you're not submitting your invoices correctly, then we cannot get you paid. So you have a contract administrator, you will have a buyer associated with your agreement. So make sure that you talk to your procurement person and that you understand what payments, invoicing, submittals, and what that process looks like. And also make sure that you understand. So at the Port of Seattle, we in general, we do net 30, which means that we will not pay you for 30 days after the submittal of an approved invoice. And so if you need to make arrangement so that you could cover your staffing and all of that, then understand that the payment will happen in general after during the net 30. There are specific situations where we negotiate payments that are different than net 30. So if you are in that category, please come and talk to us and we will make the accommodations that we can make. Then the final thing that I would say about the contract award is We will have a kickoff meeting with you. We'll meet. We'll talk about all of the requirements of the contract. We'll talk to you about invoices. We'll talk about, general operations. And the one thing that we want to make sure that you understand about that meeting is that we're here to support you. You are our partner, and our partnership is super important to us. When you're successful, we are successful. I am successful when you're successful because everybody's happy. So we want to make sure that you can be as successful as possible at SCA, and we're here to support you every step of the way. Okay, final slide, I think. It's the next one. Okay, so if you get aware of the contract, then we have the kickoff meeting, then couple of tips for you to be successful. Make sure that you communicate with us at all times. Don't wait until something is broken or until the relationship is not working to talk to us, because it's a lot easier for us to solve those issues once we know they're there. So come and talk to us. Make sure that you set up meetings with your operational team, but also with your procurement rep, so that you are in constant communication with us, so that you can tell us all of the successes, but we also have conversations about the things that are not totally working, so that we could figure out and make it successful together. And then the final thing that I would say is make sure that you are responsive. One of the things that we struggle a lot with is communication, because we need something, we're asking you for information reporting, or we're asking questions, and then we're finding out that our vendors are not responding as quickly as possible. They're just like, there's the communication's going to a black hole. So make sure that when we ask for information, that you get back to us, because that is important. There is a reason why we're asking. So be responsive to our communications, and we promise to do the exact same thing to you. When you ask questions, we promise to get back to you on a timely manner. I think that's the procurement program. Okay, the PCAR. So PCAR, I don't know how many of you are familiar with that program, but we do have a credit card program or a procurement card program at the Port Seattle. Some of our staff, Emily attended my training where I said it is a privilege. It's not a gift at the port. It is a privilege, and so we treat it as such. Some of our staff have the ability to make small purchases for a value of up to like $5,000. Those purchases are not necessarily competed in the sense that we don't put a regular solicitation out, but we do some research. We could ask for quotes for that, and then that person has the autonomy to make the decision and decide which vendor they're going to go with. There is a lot of opportunity there for WEMB participation. And so we recommend, and we do a really good job of training our staff to make sure that they're constantly looking for WEMB firms to partner with while they're making smaller purchases at the Port of Seattle. And with that, do you have any questions for me? No. Okay. So my contact info is on the slides. If you guys have any questions, or if you go home and then after today, you're like, oh, that girl, she was talking about this thing and I should have asked about something, then you have my email address. Feel free to reach out, and I am more than happy to answer any questions. Thank you, guys.
Thank you, Farlis. Now we've got Tamara, and Tamara, I will let you introduce yourself as well as your team, or I can just get the next slide going. Just let me know.
Okay, there we go. Hi, everyone. I am Tamara Hamill. I am a contract administrator with the Port of Seattle. I've been here 21 years. And with that, I am going to, as much as I love bragging and talking about the service agreements group and what we do, I'm going to turn this over to my very capable colleagues, Vicky, Enrique, and Mazarine. Vicky, would you like to kick things off?
Yeah, thank you. Hi, everybody. My name is Vicky. I work for the Port's Central Procurement Office in the Service Agreements Group. I'll be joined today by two of my Service Agreements colleagues, Maza and Enrique, but you'll hear from them a little bit later. This first slide really just gives you an idea of the various services that we've procured for. As you can see, it's quite a variety. We've procured for auditing services, copywriting, legal services or airport dining and retail consulting services, and much, much more. Next slide, please. So a service agreement is a signed contract between the port and a consultant. We have different types of contracts and services that we procure for. One kind is indefinite delivery, indefinite quantity, otherwise known as IDIQ. That's where general needs are known, but there's still some variables present. After we execute the IDIQ, we will issue a service directive or an SD, where a more specific scope of work and level of effort will be defined. We also have project-specific contracts where all needs are known and identified. There will be a more specific scope of work and level of effort, and they will be negotiated up front. Next slide, please. So within service agreements, all procurements are either defined as personal or professional in nature, and that difference plays a role in how we procure. Professional contracts are also known as contracts for architectural and engineering services. I won't read it verbatim, but this is how the RCW defines professional contracts, giving examples such as architecture, engineering, landscape architecture, and land surveying. Next slide, please. So professional contracts are awarded based on qualifications rather than cost. It's a process known as qualifications-based selection, or QBS. Price cannot be a selection criterion, and rate negotiation occurs after the notice of selection. We will negotiate the contract with the highest rated consultant for rates that are fair and reasonable. Next slide, please. Personal contracts are known as services outside of the architectural and engineering disciplines. Again, you'll see on the slide, that's how the RCW defines personal contracts. Some examples of personal contracts include accounting services, art consultants, photography, outreach. Yeah, next slide, please. For personal contracts, a price proposal or cost information is requested as a part of the consultant's proposal. Cost proposals are used to determine the best value to the port, which means the outcome that the port estimates will provide the greatest overall benefit in response to the requirements. Next slide, please. So I'm sure you're familiar with this page by now. So if you're wondering how to view current and future procurement opportunities, we have them in our Vendor Connect database. But just to kind of echo what was already said and add to it, on Vendor Connect, you can download our solicitation documents, register as a plan holder for opportunity notifications. You can formally submit questions for procurements and much more. This slide just shows what it looks like and the link to access it. And I will pass it on to Enrique, who will talk about the pre-proposal conference.
Thank you, Vicki. Can everyone hear me? Great. Most procurements that are at a value of $200,000 and above hold a pre-proposal meeting. You will need to check the solicitation in Vendor Connect for the date and location. The pre-proposal conference gives you the opportunity to ask questions about the procurement process, the solicitation, and network with other local businesses. Next slide, please. Terms and conditions. Please note, by submitting your proposal, you are agreeing to be bound to the port's terms and conditions. And the terms and conditions are available for all firms to review. Items include auto insurance, general liability, errors and omissions. The port requires a current and active certificate of insurance and endorsement policy. Coverage for each category will determine by the type of contract and what will be required to complete that work. Next slide. I'm going to jump ahead and mention the following can delay the execution of the contract. CPO will be verifying the following information. UBI number, Unified Business Identifier, will be added to the contract. Please make sure you have an active UBI number. It is best to check the Washington State Department of Revenue website to confirm your account is active. Workers' compensation, which coincides with the Washington State Department of Labor and Industry, The LNI account number will be added again to the contract. So make sure the workers' compensation is active, and contact the Department of Labor and Industry for further assistance if you have any questions. The Social Security number or employer identification number will also be added to the contract. A debarred contractor may not bid on or have a bid considered on any public works contract. And again, you can verify this information through the Washington State Department of Labor and Industry. Next slide, please. Tips for a successful proposal include structuring your proposal in the same order as the evaluation criteria as noted in the solicitation. Project-specific contracts, select projects similar to the scope of work. For IDIQs, provide examples that encompass a broad range of projects related to the scope of work. Also, research proposals from other local, state, and federal agencies. Next slide, please. Currently, interviews are being conducted via Microsoft Teams and not in person. Panelists consist of 3 to 5 subject matter experts. Be prepared by conducting mock interviews as questions are not provided in advance with at least one scenario question. The person who will be conducting the majority of the work should also respond to the questions. Respond to each question with an example other than a Port of Seattle experience. Next slide, please. Discussions and revised proposals. Following the interviews, the Port may conduct discussions. Discussions are not rated. The Port will identify material weaknesses and ask questions to the firm regarding the technical proposal and/or diversity in contracting inclusion plan. Based on these discussions, the Port may request a revised proposal, and this is your opportunity to improve on your proposal and resubmit. Next slide, I will be passing it over to Maza for the selection criteria rating slide.
Thank you, Enrique. Can you guys hear me?
Yes.
All right, great. So up next is the selection criteria. So the selection criteria rating rates the degree in which the proposal meets or does not meet our minimum requirement. So the highest rating here is outstanding and the lowest is unacceptable. Next slide, please. The next step in the process is the consensus meeting. So during this process is very confidential, just putting it out there. The evaluation team rate the proposal and interview responses against the solicitation criteria and looking at strength and weakness, which is go over the assessment. And then we go through the deliberation process right after, which can take hours. The selection is made during this meeting, and then we issue a notice of selection in accordance with the procurement schedule. Next, please. Next is negotiation. So when it comes to personal services, the Port may engage in negotiation with a shortlist firm before issuing the notice of selection to encourage them to submit a more competitive price. Just keep in mind that the Port may continue negotiation even after the award to ensure we're getting a lower price. Next, please. For professional services, after award, the consultant will be asked to submit the rate using the firm input form. The Port will use different market data and pricing data to analyze the proposed rate and negotiate to ensure that the price we're receiving are fair and reasonable. If the Port does not receive the input form within the right time frame or is unable to finalize negotiation, the Port may move forward with another firm or cancel the solicitation altogether. Next, please. So if you have more questions about the negotiation process for professional services, please follow the link below for more detail and for a more detailed overview of the rate negotiation process. And then right below here, it's a firm input form sample. This kind of just capture all the information that's needed to be filled out, such as the highest degree, first name, last name, years of relevant experience, certification, job title, etc. Next, please. So next is the post-award phase. So after award, we host a contract kickoff meeting, which is essentially just an open conversation between the ports team and the consultant. We just go over terms and conditions, we go over invoicing requirement, and just answer all the questions you may have regarding the contract or just working with the port in general. So please make sure to report the monthly amount paid to each sub-consultant electronically using the port contract data system called CDS, and also refer to section 3 of the contract for more information. And also just a reminder, if the PM is unresponsive, which is really rare, please reach out to the contract administrator, as we'll be here to help you from beginning to all the way into the contract closeout. So yeah, this concludes our presentation. If you have any questions, feel free to ask.
I think I saw a question in the chat from Nicole Hansen. She was asking about public disclosure requests, and if you could talk a little bit more about that. And then Nicole, if you had any further elaboration on that one, feel free to jump in.
Actually, hi everyone, this is Tamara again. The reason we encourage you to do public disclosure requests is so that you can get an idea of what you want to do is not ask for every submittal. You want to ask for the winning submittals or the shortlisted submittals, okay? The ones that got past the first cut. You don't want to ask for the ones that didn't make it through the first cut. And that way you can look at what it is someone else has provided and kind of maybe mirror your, or create your submittal much like theirs. You're not free to use the information in your submittal. You've got to talk about what it is you've done. But on, for the most part, it's just so you get an idea of what was successful. And that's why we say to look at other agencies' documents also.
I think, oh, sorry, Tamara, I didn't mean to interrupt you. Go ahead.
No, that's okay. Other agencies' documents, because you can glean a lot just by looking at other submittals. Okay, so thank you for the question.
Is it okay if I ask a follow-up?
Sure.
So is the public disclosure request specific? Like, what do how do I request something? Can I request my industry? Can I request something broad?
No, you would need to be pretty focused on it. You would need to discuss what solicitation you're talking about, and then what real documentation you need from it. You don't necessarily need, we have a whole bunch of supplemental documents that we ask for to be turned in. You don't necessarily need to see their company information stuff. You really need to look at what the submittal is and how the the shortlisted firms were successful in getting shortlisted, because shortlisting means that you're going to get interviewed, and if you interview, you're going to do, you got a good chance at it. But it's just really getting an idea of what's going on for this type of solicitation. I deal with a lot of the environmental contracts, and you're not going to want to look at environmental submittals for a photography kind of a solicitation. You're going to want to say, hey, what did the photographers do that got shortlisted? So you try to keep it very specific, and ask for the selection summary also. You can do that, and you can see what it was that was positive to the port, the selection team on the port side, to get that firm moved up into being able to have an interview with us.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Tamara and team, and thank you for that question, Nicole. We are quite behind, though this is fantastic information. I do want to make sure we get through construction or public works contracting with Angela, as well as Ron Jimerson talking a little bit about IT contracting here before we turn it over to our technical assistance features later this session. So Angela, are you ready?
Yeah, I'll talk fast. I think a lot of this has been covered already, so hopefully we can go through this quickly. Angela Peterson, construction contracting here at the Port of Seattle. And kind of like Emily touched on earlier, is you hear construction and you hear public works. Well, it's actually public works construction. And it's authorized under the RCW, State of Washington, Title 39. And it is all work, construction, alterations, repairs, or improvements other than ordinary maintenance executed at the cost of the port. And so Title 39, that's where you want to go to see all the rules about construction. All right, so here at the port, we do a couple different contracting methods. It's, the first one here is the traditional design, bid, build. We pick the low bidder, right? It's lump sum. It might be an on-call contract. The port's responsible for design, the contractor builds it. We have alternative public works also, which are design, build, GCCM, and JOC. Under the alternative public works, we're not picking the low bid. You've heard best value. So here we're looking at qualifications and price. And design build, we're picking one entity to design it and construct it. GCCM, also known as CMAR, General Contractor Construction Manager. Again, we hire a designer, port's responsible for design. We hire the contractor during the design phase to help assist with that design and give feedback. And then when we get the design complete, they give us their maximum construction costs and they build it for us. And JOC, job order contracting. So here we price it with an RS means book. Again, port's responsible for design. The JOC contractor is responsible for completing that construction, and 90% of that is subcontracted. Go ahead. So just, I'll keep it high level here, but again, RCW 39 talks a lot about what's required to be able to be a contractor on a public works contract. You may have heard of responsive and responsible bidder. Well, what does responsible mean? That means that you have a contractor's license, a UBI number, an active DOR account, employment security, industrial insurance, can get payment and performance bonds, can pay, know about prevailing wage, have been trained in the L&I public works, and you have to file your certified payrolls. Next to that, we talk about the Port of Seattle and some more special considerations. Again, the port has insurance. Some of the minimums for commercial general liability would be a 1 million occurrence, 2 million aggregate, autos 1 million to 5 million. And then depending on the scope of work and the project, there are other requirements with insurance. A special thing with public works construction is retainage is required to be withheld. We hold 5% from each invoice until the project's complete and all the liens and claims have been cleared. Then we pay that back to the contractor. Performance and payment bonds are required. Someone touched on badging. If you're at the airport, you have airport badging. If you're at the seaport, you have TWIC badging. And safety is super important to the port. We have a specific construction training safety program training that contractors have to go through. We require safety plans and sometimes job hazard analysis for those. And then sometimes, depending on the project, you might have a project labor agreement. You could have federal funding, which would have Buy America requirements, Davis-Bacon Act. A lot of times at the airport and seaport, we're working around our tenants, we're working around the public. So we have a lot of night work and shift work projects that have to occur, be out of the way of them. We have parking restrictions. Contractors are not allowed to park in our garage unless they want to pay the daily rate, which I don't think they do. And then we have a lot of space restrictions also. So lay down areas can be challenging. A little snapshot on small works. Last year, we awarded 27 contracts for about $8 million total. The majority of our small works contracts are 300,000 and less on-call type of contracts. And so, yeah, we do about 20 to 30 a year. And that within the on-call, we issue the work orders. And so you're looking at, 10 to 30 projects under each of those contracts. So we do 200 to 300 projects under those on-call contracts every year. And the majority of those are electrical, telecommunication, mechanical, HVAC, regulated materials. But we do some other ones too, like dock and piling and roofing and paving, things like that. We do have some upcoming smaller, most of these are small works, but I did put that the parking lot improvements in there because it's less than $1 million. So it could be considered in someone's wheelhouse. And so we do have a parking lot improvement project coming next month. And we have 2 regulated material contracts bidding and 2 electrical contracts bidding next month. So keep an eye out for those. Tell your friends. And in the major construction, the low bid section, we did 16 contracts last year for about $68 million worth of work. And there's some examples here. It's hard to read, but within those 16 contracts that we awarded, we ended up with about 237 subcontractors out of those projects so far. So that's pretty impressive. And upcoming major construction. So maybe you wouldn't be bidding this C concourse expansion project at $189 million, but there are opportunities here for you. So you want to kind of maybe keep an eye out here and look at who that prime contractor is on this contract and reach out to them and see if they need some help. And that'll get your foot in the door on that. And again, Vendor Connect, you can go there, you can sign up, you can get notified of contracts that might be in your wheelhouse. And keep an eye on who those prime contractors are. We have a checkpoint 1 relocation. We have restrooms renovations at the airport. That's federal funded, so DBE requirements. We have some airport sound insulation projects coming up. Some more GCCM projects, and the big one is the South Concourse Evolution project. We're going to be renovating the South Satellite building, and that's about a $1 billion project, and we're going to start bidding that out towards the end of this year. So keep an eye out for those. All right, so opportunities to be a subcontractor. Major construction is great. We have inclusion plans. We require them to utilize WIMBY firms on those contracts. So those are great opportunities. Job order contracting, we have a 16% WIMBY commitment on one, and we have a DBE goal on the other one with the federal funding. And 90% of that work subcontracted. Design build, we evaluate those design builders on their past project WIMBY efforts and attainments, and what their current project commitments are and what their attainment plan for the projects are. That's how we select those design builders. GCCM, 70% of the work is subcontracted. So there's a lot of opportunities there, and that includes equipment and material purchases. The prime contractor is the one who bids those out, and it's competitive low bid. And GCCM heavy civil, at 30% of that is subcontracted. And just a little bit about the job order contract. A lot of people have heard of it. Maybe they don't quite know what it is. It's, we go out and we get a job order contractor. If they're on contract, when we issue the work orders, that's when they reach out to subcontractors to get their pricing to provide us an estimate on the work, and we issue a work order. And so we do, again, multiple projects under that job order contract. The value of those projects are anywhere from, $2,000 to $500,000. And they're great for well-defined, recurring, repetitive work. You'll see it a lot on kind of our noise remedy projects. And here's some examples of work we do. We did some flight corridor safety, which was some tree trimming, tenant demarc, which is telecommunication, putting in Wi-Fi access points. We refurbished a privacy room at the Pier 69, our airport dining retail. We went in and renovated some spaces, kiosk program, of course, noise remediation, which is windows and doors replacements. And they range, they're pretty quick turnaround. They're 2 months, 3 months, 6 months projects, typically short and you know, around $300,000.
And then Angela, it looks like we have a question in the chat. Mark is asking, how do we register for Small Works roster? Is that an option through Vendor Connect?
Yes. Yes. And so our job contractor, we do have 2 job order contracts, separate contracts, but they happen to be the same contractor, who is Centennial Contractor Enterprises. You're welcome to reach out to them and introduce yourself if you're interested in getting some work here at the airport or at the seaport. The RCW for Alternative Public Works is here, and another little website here talks about job order contracting. And so, yeah, ways to engage, right? Here's some, so we have the Small Works contracts, SW, MCs, Major Construction, JOC, GCCM, and Design Build. Highly recommend you go into Vendor Connect and register yourself. Make sure you pick the right NACE codes. And anytime, every contract we advertise, we put it out there. We email people that, hey, we're calling for bids. And so even if, you know, like I said, maybe you wouldn't be the prime, but maybe you are interested in doing those type of projects, you know, still get that notification, and then you'll know to check and see who, you know, who's the plan holder, right? You can look at that, you can go to the project in Vendor Connect and look who the plan holders are. Reach out to those plan holders, so, you know, and you can list yourself. You can look at the primes and you can list yourself if you're interested in subcontracting or supplying. So make sure you get in there and put yourself as a plan holder. And then the primes on the larger projects can go in there and see who's there. And we have informational meetings. So again, in Vendor Connect, we'll email and let you know, hey, we're having an informational meeting. We usually do those for the big projects. We'll have kind of a pre-bid meeting, if you will, a few months in advance, get the word out, let people know it's coming. And again, if you can attend those, go and talk to the prime contractors and introduce yourself. And then the pre-bid meeting, we have pre-bids on all of our construction, and you're welcome to attend those and introduce yourself and you know, talk to the prime contractors. So those are ways to engage with construction. So thank you.
Thank you so much, Angela. I think we have time for maybe one question before we move over to Ron. Are there any additional ones besides the one that was voiced in the chat?
Well, I can respond to Maureen. This is Tamara once again. Maureen, you could you would need to watch our future opportunities list to see what projects are coming up, because that will have the contract administrator's name on it, and it will have the project manager's name on it. And with that information, you should be able to get a hold of them, one or both, to discuss, you know, what's coming up. So keep an eye out for that, on that list.
Yeah, also on Vendor Connect, you can see what projects are coming. You can see what primes are interested, but you can also go back to that same solicitation and see who won the project. And so you can know who to reach out to in that way as well.
Okay, moving on to Ron.
Hello all, can you hear me okay, and can you see me okay?
Yes to both.
Yeah, I realize that that we're over time, so I want to be respectful of everybody else's time. So we're probably going to go through this relatively fast. My name is Ron Jimerson. I'm the Director of Information Security for the Port of Seattle. And I'm here with my colleague, Krista Sadler. She is the Director of Technology Delivery. So we're going to give you some specific perspectives as to how you can procure contracts for delivering technology services or products within the Port of Seattle. So I'll give you a quick overview of our department. And before I do that, let me stop and pause for just a second and let Krista introduce herself, and she can go over her specific department overview.
Yeah, good afternoon all. Krista Sadler, I'm Director of Technology Delivery at the airport, the Port of Seattle. And in ICT, kind of different than Ron, and he'll go through his in a minute. Our key functions there are really providing all the network and telephony communications for the port and many of the tenants that we have. We support all the employee workstations, mobile devices, all the office and business specific applications. Those are just a few short words, but it's a huge amount of work. And then Ron's team dreams up all the cybersecurity stuff that we need to do, and then we have to implement it. So
next slide. Thank you, Krista. So yes, as she alluded to, basically we provide the strategies, operations, and put the controls, make sure that the controls are in place to protect our information systems, and that includes monitoring for threats and vulnerabilities, assessing risk, making sure we have the proper controls in place, and then responding to any type of incident that would take place. So we do that. We shape a lot of that around our security architecture that we have in place. So I'm going to get specifically into some of the purchasing and procurement details, just to make sure we're keeping our time here. So one of the ways that we can procure products and services or goods and services is really through direct buys, and that's if it's under $50,000, we can pretty much procure that relatively fast, either through contracting or other mechanisms. And Krista, don't be afraid to jump in here as well. Next one. So another way we can procure services and goods is that if it's under $150,000, we can typically go out and get 3 quotes, and we won't have to go through any bureaucratic system to be able to award a contract or just do a direct purchase. Next item. So often when we have products or services that we're trying to procure that are over $150,000, and these amounts are subject to change as well, we like to go through a competitive, or required to go through a competitive process. So that may require what we call a request for proposal. It could be a variety of ways as to how that might be advertised. Next item. And we have another way that we can procure products and services, and that's through direct solicitation. So if you provide a good or a service that's unique, or something that a lot of other vendors out there don't provide, and we need that specialty, then we can go out and we can do a direct solicitation, and that would be to a targeted vendor. Next one. So if another way that we can procure services and goods as well is through the cooperative agreements that are out there. So if you're already on another state contract or government contract within the state of Washington, we may be able to leverage that particular contract and purchase those services directly. Next slide. So want to get really kind of down into it, and that is some potential IT and security contracting opportunities that are coming up. So I'll let Krista talk about the first one.
Actually, I thought that was yours, Ron, so I apologize. I wish that I was talking to you all a little bit ago, because we just went through 3 IDIQ procurements. We do have one coming up for network design. So that one is probably in the next couple of months. So.
Okay, well, I'll just quickly tell you that the second one that you see here, incident handling, we are slated to procure a contracted services for someone to come in and help us with incident handling should the needs arise. So you'll see some more details on that through the vendor solicitations that are out there. And then IT security assessment and consulting. We will be reaching out for consulting services on how we can make our infrastructure more robust within its security. And government risk and compliance, GRC solutions that you see there, that's a platform for for centralizing how we do our governance and compliance and our risk assessment. So we will be soliciting for a solution this coming year. And I think Krista already talked about network designs. This is just a few things that are on the horizon. There will be other things that'll be out there. So through your vendor connect and the future solicitations, you'll have visibility into the other types of IT services and products that we will be soliciting for this year. So I wanted to bring this out because we get a lot of solicitations where people are contacting our organization directly, our IT or either information security through unsolicited emails, phone calls, things like that. That's very time consuming. A lot of that stuff can get ignored because we've got just so much things that we're trying to do, running a business and trying to make sure that IT services are being sustained and things like that. So really, it's just best to try to go directly through diversity and contracting if you have questions, and they can relay messages to us and things like that. If you do happen to get through and you're talking to us, just make sure you've done your homework and you understand what type of services that we're trying to provide, so we can have a useful dialect. Next slide. Okay, just a couple of other things to consider when you are doing business with the port. If you have a contract, if you're providing services, if you're using our information systems, or if you're connecting a product or a service to our infrastructure, you have to think about the data handling and storage and sharing, and there's other parameters and things like that we would do assessments on. Next slide. And then integrating services. Anytime that you are going to do business, if you're going to provide a SaaS solution for us or anything that's running through the cloud, keep in mind we're going to be doing assessments. We're going to be asking about control considerations that need to be in place and do you have in place. That's whether we're doing that in the cloud or whether on-prem. Next slide. Terms of agreement. So I wanted to put this in here because this is the exact verbiage in our policies here at the port, and that is, for the life of the agreement, if you need remote access and you're connecting to our network systems, you're going to be subject to additional data security requirements on the port. So, you're going to have to show us, how you're protecting whatever you're interfacing us with. And then we're also going to be looking for other types of information, such as, do you have a mechanism in place to, monitor your vulnerabilities? Are you keeping your information systems updated and things like that? Because once you are interfaced with the port, your weaknesses could be damaging to our organizations if you don't have the proper security mechanisms in place. Next slide. So I wanted to put this slide in here real quick because as a small business organization, and I'm talking about security specifically, if you can go to the Cybersecurity Infrastructure Security Agency, and there's some resources there for you to do best practices so you have that security in place. Next slide. Okay, I'm going to turn this back over to Krista before we ask any questions, because I want to give her the opportunity to chime in more on the ICT side of the house.
I don't know that I have anything to add. We have a wide variety of technologies and a lot of skills that we need often. So we also do look for minority, women-owned businesses, small businesses. So keep looking out there for us.
Thank you. But I do have a question for Ryan.
Would you mind typing it? Would you be able to type it into the chat? Question is, how much modular furniture is purchased? Let's see. I wonder if that is a Farless question, and Farless is not here. So Derek, can I take your question and then get back to you with it? Great. Okay, thanks again, Ron and Krista. So that's for the Port of Seattle contracting portion of this session. I'll hand it over to Andrew, who will guide us to our next presenters.
Yep, and due to the time crunch, we're just gonna do the PTAC and the SBTRC portion of this next week. And coming up now, we will have the SBA. This is, I forgot who we have speaking from SBA.
You have Janie Sacco speaking from the SBA.
Janie Sacco from the SBA, and she'll take over from here.
Okay, so I'm going to share my slide deck. I hope. Okay, so the SBA, what do we do? Well, we're going to talk about access to capital, access to counseling, access to contracting, bonding, and programs, and our innovative programs. So let's talk about the capital programs first. If you have business owners who have contracts that need to have funding, we have some outstanding programs to help business owners get access to money through their lending community. So the first program that really is the workhorse of everything about SBA is the 7A Loan Guarantee Program. And we have approximately 100 lenders in the Seattle District Office market area, which includes the majority of the state of Washington. And then we also go into Northern Idaho. Through those financial institutions, which may be credit unions and or banks, we offer guarantees on term loans, lines of credit, and we also focus on the same lines of credit and term loans for exporters. And then we have another program called the 504 program, which is really used to fund fixed asset acquisition. So when we're talking about the 7A Loan Guarantee Program, what it really means is that the SBA, as a federal agency, is extending a guarantee to the lender doing the funding under one of these programs. That guarantee percentage can be 50%, 75%, 85%, or 90%, depending on the program that's being utilized. So what that does is it gives financial institutions the opportunity to provide funding to the small business owners who may not qualify for their traditional loan products. So the term loans may have maturities of up to 10 years, 15 years for equipment that has a longer useful life than a 10-year period, and then up to 25 years when there is commercial real estate involved in at least 51% of the total use of the proceeds. We have cap lines that have a maturity of up to 10 years, and those lines of credit can be utilized for many different purposes and many different business types. And between the term loans and the cap lines, they're great programs for contractors to utilize to meet all of their needs. And then again, with the export side, we do have lines of credit and term loans that we call the international term loan product. The export programs are all focused on businesses that are located in the United States, and the asset base that we are funding is again housed in the United States. The 504 loan program, again, is a different type of program. You have a lender, the SBA, and the borrower involved in the transaction. The lender, which can be, again, a credit union or a bank or a nonprofit revolving loan fund, they do 50% of the transaction. The SBA can fund directly anywhere between 30 to 40% of the transaction. And then the borrower may be asked to come in with a minimum of 10% all the way up to 20%, depending on the transaction. The really great thing about the 504 program is that it offers fixed rate financing for equipment, or real estate, or refinance opportunities for the small business community, and it helps them develop equity in those assets. The 7A loan guarantee program, however, is typically a revolving interest rate program. So there's a little bit more risk to the borrower under that program because the interest rate can change over the life of the loan. So who are our lending partners under this program? Again, banks, credit unions. As I indicated, we have more than 100 financial institutions that participate in these programs. We have lender match. And what the borrower would do here is go to sba.gov/lender match. They would put in a little bit of information about their needs and then hit submit, and their request goes out to all of our participating lenders that are involved in lender match nationwide. And the lenders contact the small business owner and see if they would like to do funding with them. Then we have a whole other group of nonprofit revolving loan funds. And I've indicated here whether they're a micro lender or a community advantage lender. The micro lenders have the ability to do direct lending to a small business owner for loans up to $50,000. Some of these institutions have lower limits than the $50,000, but they're available for the small business owners to reach out to and get assistance on those smaller dollar transactions. The community advantage lenders like Craft 3 and Evergreen Business Capital have under their program the ability to do a loan up to $350,000. And the mission on the Community Advantage program is to lend to underserved borrowers and in rural communities. The micro lenders, however, can lend anywhere within the scope of their market area. Regarding counseling, we have outstanding sources for our business owners to get technical assistance. We started with SCORE, which is the Service Corps of Retired Executives. That organization is throughout the U.S. We have several chapters within the state of Washington, and you'll be seeing a little bit of contact information about them as we go through the slides. But SCORE primarily works with businesses who have been in operation for 2 years or less. Then we have the Washington Small Business Development Center, and we have advisors throughout the state of Washington. And then the small business development centers operate nationwide. But we have several offices within the state of Washington, and they offer technical support and advice to businesses that have been in operation for more than 2 years. Then we have the Women's Business Center. We have 3 in our state, and they are primarily for the technical assistance for women-owned businesses. And then for our veterans, we have the Veterans Business Outreach Center. And it's a great program as well, but they're targeted markets. And then we just added another group called the Community Navigators. And the Community Navigators support veteran-owned businesses, women-owned businesses, and those businesses that are in rural communities and communities of color. So for reference purposes in the slide deck, I gave you the links to our technical assistance providers. There's SCORE, the Washington Small Business Development Center, our women's business centers, Spokane, Lacey, and Seattle. We do have coverage throughout the state of Washington, even though they're located in those areas, they do provide coverage throughout the state. And then we have the Veterans Business Outreach Center contact information. And you see Business Impact Northwest coming up a few times here. Once as a micro lender, once as housing the Women's Business Center, and once as housing the Veterans Business Outreach Center. They're a busy group and very supportive of the SBA programs. The VBOC does, for this particular group, does serve multiple states in our greater Northwest region. And then for our Community Navigator program, we have 2 technical assistance providers, one in Seattle with the Urban League of Metropolitan Seattle, and then the TALA Fund, which is located in Pacific Beach. Now, moving along to the other programs that we have, we do a robust process with our 8A Business Development Program. And what that program is essentially is a 9-year program to help businesses who are eligible for it efficiently compete and receive set-asides and sole source contracts from the federal agencies. They receive one-on-one technical assistance throughout this process of that 9 years through business opportunity specialists. And for the Seattle District Office, we have a business opportunity specialist lead and 3 business opportunity specialists. And we're looking for more small businesses. So if you have anybody, you just refer them over to the Seattle District Office. You'll see the contact information toward the end of the slide. And we'd be happy to look at them and see if they are eligible and get them in this process, because it really is a very exciting one. I have included for ease at the bottom of this, the link to all of the details about the 8A program. But it's great, and it really is beneficial to the small business community that is eligible for it. So who is eligible? Well, the first group of participants includes small disadvantaged businesses. And disadvantaged persons or persons must be socially disadvantaged and economically disadvantaged. The firm must be owned by 51% or more, owned and controlled by 1 or more disadvantaged persons. So in lieu of going through all the categories that are considered socially disadvantaged, I put the link in here so that you have that and can refer back to it as you're helping your client base. The firm must be small according to SBA size standards. And what I want you to know is that the size standards were just updated in May of this year. And that was a great process because it really opened up the opportunity for many more business sizes and types to get in there and be eligible for SBA programs. So just to give you an idea, manufacturing businesses and wholesaling businesses usually have a size standard based on the employee number. And it's broken down by NAICS code, and the numbers vary greatly. So it's a good idea for the business owner to take a look at that size standard. For retail, contractors, and service-based businesses, generally the size standard is broken down by average annual revenue. And again, that's broken down by NAICS code. And if you click on the size standard link here, you'll get all the information, be able to help any business owner. Now, the next category of participants includes the women-owned businesses. So again, they have to comply with the size standard for their industry, but the business must be at least 51% owned and controlled by women who are U.S. citizens and who are making the day-to-day operating decisions in the business. We also have another category of economically disadvantaged women-owned small businesses that can qualify for the program. And as you can see, it's based on the personal net worth, it's based on their average annual income, and then the dollar amount maximums of their personal assets. And it's per individual, so it's not cumulative, so it helps women business owners who may fall into these categories qualify for participation in the program. And the last category that we have participating in this program is veteran-owned businesses. And again, they have to meet the size standards. They must meet the eligibility criteria as a veteran-owned small business. And so for all of these programs, there is a verification process and self-certification process that they go through. So starting with the veterans, I've included the link. They go through the Veteran Affairs Center for Verification and Evaluation, and they go through an application process. So they can get started on their verification by clicking on this link. for small disadvantaged businesses, they have to register at www.sam.gov. And the SAM is an acronym for the Sales Management System. And that's where they get a unique entity identifier and register all their information for their business. And they need to do that because eventually we hope they're getting funding from the federal contracts that they are performing on. And then last but not least, we have the woman-owned and economically disadvantaged woman-owned small businesses register at beta.certify.sba.gov. And again, this is a self-certification process. So they don't have to be certified through the Office of Minority and Women Business Enterprises at the state level. We have our own certification processes here. Now, for those businesses that have contracts and need bonding, we have the Surety Bond Guarantee Program. And in essence, what this program does is it enables small businesses to get bonded for higher dollar amounts than they would be normally eligible to obtain through a surety company. So how does this really work? Well, the surety bonds are requested of the contractor by the company or organization letting the bid go, okay? The small business owner reaches out to surety partners that are participating in this guarantee program. And we do have a list on our website of those surety partners that participate in this program. The SBA, when the application process comes together, then guarantees to the surety company that they will honor the bond for a particular dollar amount. And then the small business owner benefits because they have access to bonding at a higher level, again, so that they can bid on larger projects. And, you know, I've heard our surety bond staff talk through these processes, and they can do very, very quick turnarounds on these approvals when they're working with single source contracts and business owners that qualify for this. So it's not a long drawn out process. It's really designed to be very efficient. So I've included the surety bond link in the presentation for further review. The last group, and I think this is the most interesting one. I used to be a lender, so I love the contract, the guarantee program and all of that. But the Office of Investment and Innovation Resources offers some really innovative programs for our small businesses. In 1958, it started with the small business investment companies. And what happens here is there were private equity capital companies that utilized the SBA to be able to do investments in small businesses to provide capital so that the small business could expand and grow more rapidly. And that program exists today. The issue that I just want to share with you is that because in our market area of greater Seattle, East Side, et cetera, we have a large number of private joint venture and different funding organizations. We actually do not have a participating small business investment company in the state of Washington. The closest ones are in Oregon and California, but there is a list published on our website for these purposes. Moving along, we have the Small Business Innovation Research Program. This one came about, as you can see, in 1982. And this program was really designed to stimulate technological innovation and get businesses participating with different federal agencies to be innovative and help create products that helped solve some of the needs of the federal agencies. So this particular program is published on the government websites for the different departments at the federal level, and they these different departments actually let grants out for research and development to the small business community. They can partner with other organizations to help them get through this R&D process. And it's just really a very interesting and productive program for innovation and helping create resolutions in terms of product need for the different agencies at the federal level. Then about 10 years later, the Small Business Technology Transfer program came to pass. That one is for the same purpose, again, technological innovation, but is more related to science and education research institutions. So it's an expansion of the SBIR program. And then last but not least, the SBA created the Growth Accelerator Fund competition. And what that does is the SBA awards up to $50,000 cash prizes to business accelerator groups to help them get staffing and get organized to provide technical assistance to small businesses that need a little bit more help. So if you have client base or you have more questions, you can reach out to us at our info sdo@sba.gov, and that just stands for info Seattle District Office at sba.gov. You can give us a call in Seattle at 206-553-7310. And we have our Spokane office at 509-353-2800. The Spokane branch office serves all of Eastern Washington. Seattle District Office tends to serve Western Washington, but we have overlap as the case it needs to be. All right. And we help each other all the time with different issues in relation to helping our small business community. So you can connect with us at sba.gov/WA. You can sign up for emails and updates, and they're very timely, and they do give you a lot of information about the SBA programs. So that's it for me. Thank you very much.
All righty. Well, we've got a few more minutes here. Tiffany did want to get a word in edgewise about the PTAC system. So instead of sending everybody on their way, we'll give her a minute to talk here, unless Leslie wanted to do it, or, well, there's a lot of PTACers in here. Miriam?
Yeah, I'd be
Whichever one of you wants to go right ahead.
Yeah, thanks. I'd be happy to share. And thanks for having us here today, to the Port folks, as well as SBTRC and Leslie at the PTAC. I'm Tiffany Scroggs. I work with Leslie at the Procurement Technical Assistance Center, and we help businesses win government contracts and subcontracts. So we're technical assistance providers, meaning we will sit down with you and help you succeed in the public sector marketplace, including selling to the port. So I have a few slides. I just wanted to introduce us as kind of helpers as your journey through public contracting continues throughout the next few weeks. So the PTAC is a congressionally funded and authorized program. It's designed to assist businesses in selling to the federal, state, and local government marketplaces. We have 1,400 clients each year that come through our doors, and those are typically small businesses in the state of Washington. And we provide them over 4,000 hours of assistance, and they win contracts as a result. So last year, our client base won $300 million in government contracts and subcontracts. We'd love, if you're not already working with us, for you to be included in those numbers so that we can help you be successful. So how do we do that? How do we help you? We provide one-on-one advising on all things related to government contracting. And I'll talk a little bit more about what that entails in a minute. We offer training and bid matching services, as well as research. On the advising side, if you find yourself asking yourself these questions, then it might be time for you to connect and call your PTAC advisor. Questions could include, I wonder who buys what I sell. When are they going to buy it? How do they buy it? How could I be considered for that solicitation? All those certifications that Janie went over, all the cybersecurity requirements that the port went over, anything that has to do with being successful in the public sector marketplace, we can help you unravel and navigate so that you can be successful. So any of those questions that resonate with you, you're like, I need to talk to a PTAC advisor. And I would invite you now, if you're already working with one of our team members, be it Daryl or Trina or Marnie or Miriam or Lisa, just kind of type that into the chat and share that your experience with working with them, and hopefully it's a positive one. And we also offer training and service, training and events. So we were at 150 events last year. We're on track to exceed that this year. And the reason being is that we want you to have access to quality information about who buys what you sell. And upcoming, we have a creating extraordinary elevator pitch class. I think there's only 2 or 3 spots left. So if you're interested in that, go to the Washington PTAC calendar right now and find October 5th and register. We also are offering direct and indirect charges. That's more federally focused, but it will be held October 18th. Dissecting an RFQ is a fantastic opportunity to really dive into an actual government solicitation and walk through that. We have Meet the Bigs, which is a big networking event out in Spokane, and Meet the Agencies coming up in Linwood. So no shortage of events. There's plenty others on the calendar. We also offer bid matching services where we connect you to opportunities based on keywords. So it certainly doesn't replace you registering in the port system, for example, or on the state's web system. But what it does is link you to those opportunities so that you have another opportunity to see them. And it might uncover opportunities that you didn't know you weren't registered for to receive. So we search 1,400 different websites, and we can limit that to just Washington State, or we could go nationwide and help connect you to opportunities that you might not have seen otherwise. We also have market research services. We know that the impact of research on a firm's growth and profitability is high, and we want to help you be armed with the best market intelligence possible, so we can help you uncover who buys what you sell, how much did the government pay for that last time, and who is your competition. And we have ways of sleuthing this information out in addition to the public disclosure process that the port already talked about. So if you ever need that information, please reach out and we can do some hunting and try to find out that public information for you. This is the team. We have a great team of 15 individuals across the state. We're dedicated to seeing you succeed long-term. This is all the contact information. You would work with the advisor closest to your firm. So if you're in King County, you'd have the privilege of working with the team at Green River College, Daryl, Marnie, and Melinda. Down in Pierce County, we have Trina and Miriam, and they're all here ready to support you at no cost. So go to washingtonptac.org to get started. Thanks for letting me suck up just a few minutes of your time, and to the port for having us here today. Look forward to all the other sessions coming up in the upcoming weeks.
So thank you, Tiffany. PTAC is here to help you decipher all of the red tape and get through the processes. You know, by the time we get done with these workshops, you will feel like you're drinking out of a fire hose, and PTAC will be your best resource to help you work through all the minutia. You know, the simple things, you know, as Tiffany spoke about, getting registered. You know, it doesn't matter if it's with the Port of Seattle or with the City of Seattle or the City of Spokane or City of Portland, you know, or if it's at the federal level. And all things federal are exactly what Janie talked about in regards to certifications and registrations. And there's somewhat of a rumor going on about the system for award management, sam.gov. Lots of hubbub and rhubarb with those guys, but PTAC can walk you through it. Don't be intimidated by anything that you try to do. So with that, I would like to thank Tiffany for coming today and supporting the Port of Seattle, and our other PTACs here. I think Melinda's here and Miriam are here. Yay. So with that, I'll turn this back over to Andrew, and he can give you some closing remarks and some highlights of what's coming next week. Thank you.
All right. thanks, PTAC. And seriously, if you guys have any interest in working with the government at any level, call your PTACs. They have so much information available. You can at least take the fire hose and set it down and then just pick it up every time you call them instead of just having to write it all down in a hurry. So at any rate, the next week we're going to have a whole bunch of different adjustments to it. But one, SBTRC, we'll have our little spiel next week. And then we've also got the, oh, I lost my little register here. There we go. Next week, there we go. Understanding contract proposals with Matthew Reinhardt from MassPoint. And then the SBDC is going to be speaking, Kevin Grossman from the Small Business Development Center. And as far as this, we just want to thank all of our partners, all of our sponsors, all the presenters. There's just so much work goes into putting on one of these little events. And specifically, Emily, Leslie, and Aisha have done so much work to put this together. Leslie in particular has done a lot of work on this. And I just wanted to do a shout out and thank you for all of your hard work. And then, hey, you got your share screen open. You've got our flyer open. You could scroll it down and we could share all the sponsors too. These are all the logos. All of these people are involved in the upcoming workshops, and we look forward to hearing from each and every one of them. If anybody has any more questions, Emily's email was dropped in the inbox. Mine is about to become in there as well. PTRC at. And I can forward anything you have for questions onto any of the people that spoke, or even people that we have up and coming. Maybe if you wanted to have them touch on a topic, you can look through the flyer and see what those events will be. C.org. Okay, there's my email. Any last points from anybody else? Or we
I
want to
think
call
people
it
are
call it a day?
asking how to get the slides and the recording. If someone could type that in the chat.
Leslie, you got that?
Yeah, technically we will notify everyone with the direct link for you to download out of our digital Dropbox. And when the videos are uploaded, we'll let you know about that too. So yes, we are taking care of that for you. And you'll get reminders every week as to the upcoming event. And after today's event, we actually have a post-event survey that will go out right away for today's activities. If you'd be so kind as to respond to those, we'd greatly appreciate that. So yeah, we'll stay in touch, and you all have my email address, so feel free to send me a message or ask me a question. Thank you.
And also the workshop itself, I noticed there's a lot of folks that didn't register. They just kind of word of mouth, or they're replacing somebody else. If you want to do this whole series, you can just drop in, but we would like you to register so we can stay in touch with your business and help you get your bonding and try and get you your awards and take care of you down the road. So click on the website that I just dropped in the link, which is the website for the Advanced PortGen. And with that, I think that's all she wrote.
Thank you, Andrew. Thank you, Leslie.
Thank you, guys.
I think it's just another plug. Please come and check out some of the rest of the awesome workshops we've got coming up that's posted on here. We've got a lot of really informational, important, hopefully really useful educational topics. But not only that, we've got more technical assistance agencies that we want to connect you to, like PTAC, like SBTRC, which we didn't get to today, like SBA, as well as additional government agencies and how contracting works for them. As you can see on here, we've got City of Seattle and City of Tacoma. We've got Sound Transit. So we've got a lot of good stuff ahead. We're really looking forward to more of these Tuesday afternoons with you. And at the very end, we've got an in-person networking session on October 4th that will be in Tabor. So please mark your calendars for that. I'm sure you'll be hearing more about that, but I just want to make sure you are saving the date. So with that, Mian, do you have any final closing remarks for this very successful first Advanced PortGen session of 2022?
No, this is awesome. And again, all of our community partners and partners here, and to you small businesses and businesses alike, it's here we go, and enjoy the rest of the week and look forward to seeing you on these other future sessions.
Thank you so much, everyone. Have a good rest of your afternoon.
Great,
Bye-bye.
thank you.
Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you.